Yo, 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 Facebook. Happy Friday, everybody. Super fired up to be here with you today. Today, I get the pleasure of interviewing one of my clients, one of my friends, my friend Ben Bonnell today. We're going to talk about his journey of how he's been able to leverage the Relevant Recruiter program to pick up 10 new contracts. And in fact, we were just celebrating before we started this year, 11 now in the last 90 days from after implementing the Relevant Recruiter program. So Ben, thank you so much for joining me today. If you guys are listening, drop a hi, a what's up below so we know that you can hear us. But Ben, thank you for being here with me, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited. It's good
Awesome.
stuff.
Yeah. So Ben, give us a little background. So you're out in Texas right now, right?
I am. Yeah, we're in Houston. It's where we physically sit. And that's where our staffing business is focused. And then our search business obviously has a much bigger geography. But yeah, we're sitting in Houston. Sunny, hotter than Hades outside, but we'll take it. There's no hurricanes, at least yet.
Yeah. Well, I'm in California. It's smoky. It's smoky everywhere. We've got three huge fires raging just in my area. So I'm glad that you're not sitting in smoke. We've got 90 degrees with fire haze over the top of us. So interesting times out here. Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's nuts, man. Absolutely nuts. We had a thunderstorm blow through last weekend, and California is just waiting to ignite every year. And it ignited us. There's fires all over the state. So anyways, man, let's dive right into to your story. Why don't you tell us, Ben, a little bit about your journey as, starting off as being a recruiter into starting this, staffing business / search business that you have now.
Sure. So I started when I was, it's been about 10 years, I think. Got hired in an entry level kind of like hourly industrial type recruiting, and worked through several different positions over, I guess it was about 6.5 years working for the prior owners of the staffing business, to which point they were ready to retire. And I had the opportunity and was fortunate to be able to purchase the staffing business from them. And then we just in the last 2 years really pivoted and started adding and growing our search business, kind of two separate lanes, if you will. There's a little bit of crossover. We have some clients that we work in staffing and search, but for the most part, they're two separate paths, if you will. So it's just been 10 years. It's been an awesome journey so far.
Yeah. What were some of the differences that you kind of first faced from being kind of an employee to being, the guy running the show?
You got all day?
The Cliff Notes version or what?
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in a small business environment. My parents were small business owners, so it always felt like a path that I would go down, just didn't necessarily know how or when that would happen. I think a lot of people get into staffing or recruiting too kind of on accident. It's not like you grow up going, I'm going to be a recruiter and I'm going to go to college for recruiting. And but got into it, and I think the biggest shift was right away feeling the difference of having someone there to guide, to hold you accountable. I've never really struggled with discipline or motivation in a real serious way, but that's a shift for sure. Going from, Friday you have a boss to Monday you don't have a boss. Right. In the early, year or two, kind of feeling some days like you're this rudderless ship out at sea, trying to pay attention to the market, trying to understand, when you need to make changes. I would compare it to first-time parents. It's the one job that I'm aware of that can take you from being terrified to pure elation to being terrified, all in a 60-second time frame.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you're out there by yourself sometimes.
But that's what's great about it, right?
Yeah.
You want to make a change, you want to do something different. You decide to pivot, you make it happen. That's right. I think that's why people get into it, right? I mean, there's financial motivation, obviously, but right. It's to be able to chart your own course. I mean, that's the attraction, obviously. I wouldn't change it for anything. 100%.
And I know, if you don't mind sharing, I know that you guys just kind of made a recent pivot right in the middle of COVID, to support what's going on with your business and where you can serve, your market best. You mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, we when we first started working together, obviously we were trying to go down two paths at once.
Right.
And then quickly it became obvious with the pandemic. It's almost laughable to think back in April, we were like, by May things will be back to normal. So we realized there was one of our lines of business, there's just very little demand. Overnight, the flip of a switch, a 50% drop. And we saw the opportunity on the search side to really get more specific or get more focused on that particular niche. And when we did, I mean, it was it almost again felt like a flip of a switch. Things started to happen almost immediately.
Right.
So that was, and it's interesting when something bad happens too, the changes that it kind of forces your hand on something perhaps that you should have already been doing. Like before we went live, just talking about that book,
Right.
it's interesting how that works. Everything happens for a reason. I'm a firm believer in that.
Right. So let's talk about the fun stuff. Let's talk about the lead gen, what we've been doing. But before we really dive into that, if you're listening to us live, just drop a hi below. Let us know that you can hear us, or watching us, I should say. But, what were you doing with your lead generation prior to our work together? Like what was the big kind of frustration? What were some of the tactics that you were using? What was working, what wasn't?
Oh my gosh. So I thought until we started working together that we had tried everything, but clearly we hadn't. We had traditional business development when we'd have someone specifically in that role, right? In staffing, where usually you have kind of segmented roles. You have recruiters or staffing managers, and you have people in business development. LinkedIn was maybe a tool, but we didn't use it a whole lot. We were doing the traditional old school methods. We grew our business by cold call and opening doors, stuff like that. It was a very traditional mindset. I guess part of it in recent years, just because we got a handful of people who have been here for a really long time, 8 years, 10 years, you start to grow just organically because you work with people or place people that take you someplace when they leave or something of that nature. So in the recent years leading up to us working together, that was one of the primary drivers for sure.
Yep. Got it. And what were some of the things, kind of walk us through like what the process we went through, to kind of start, what was the big shift for you in the beginning?
It was the purposeful realization of the process. One, your process was obviously very new to us, but it was one that was kind of terrifying too. Like we were talking a while back, it's interesting. Every call I get on now, the person's like, "Oh yeah, I've been following you," or "Oh yeah, I've seen you," and which is weird. It's just an odd thing. We've always grown kind of like under the radar. We've not had a public presence, so it was being willing to take the chance that you kind of pushed us down, right? To start getting loud and start making noise and using some of those tools.
Right. What was kind of your biggest kind of fear going into it? What were some of the things you were afraid of? Because I know a lot of people are.
Yeah. I don't remember who said it. Someone in the group made a comment, was like, I felt like I stripped naked and walked across a high wire in my hometown. I'm not a public person.
Yeah.
I'm an introvert by nature. So sales isn't something that's a natural thing for me anyways. So it was just that, like going public, making noise, like kind of staking your claim on your particular niche or segment. That was the biggest challenge at first, getting over that hump. The next one was just the embrace of all the tools and the technology that and you and I had conversations about that. My goodness, it makes your life easier, but that was a challenge for me, getting through that technology piece for sure.
Right. What were some of the things that kind of helped you that you can share with people listening that what helped you to kind of overcome that fear? Like how were you able to, break through, from the program and our work together and stuff?
So we did an exercise, you probably don't remember it, but it was real early on about doing a video. And when I did that, which I think it came down to like, hey, we're paying for this, so we got to do this.
Right.
You got to embrace it. And in the first like couple actions, getting significant positive feedback was like, oh, okay, we're not going to get picked last in gym class. Like people like this.
Right.
People want to work with people that are relatable to them. And that stuff became very obvious early on. Like, hey, if we just put ourselves out there, there's an audience that's receptive, but still that's a challenge. I mean, you've seen, like, I still put out quite a bit of content every week. Each time, like, I still can feel my heart rate increase a little bit right before I get ready to hit that button to send it out. But you got to get over that fear, right?
Yep.
You don't, what do they say? You don't grow inside your comfort zone.
Yep. Stepping outside. Absolutely. No. And it's been fun for me to watch, you put yourself out there from that first video to what you're doing now. And obviously that's impacted, the business and the contracts, but what are some other ways that you putting yourself out there? Like what are some of the, indirect results that you've seen from that?
It's been interesting, the people that have reached out to talk or to ask, like, hey, would you look at what we're doing, or would you give us advice, or would you be willing to mentor us on this, and the relationships that come from that. And it's mostly been with other people that are in the same position as I am. So that's a small business owner. It's another independent recruiter. It's someone who we've built a relationship now with, that you can have conversations that sometimes you can't have with other people. It's someone who understands your wins, your losses, the conversations about, hey, what are you doing that's working? What are you doing that's not working? And the genuine transparency that, again, it's sometimes hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
That's been invaluable. I can't count with my two hands how many people those relationships have striked up in the last, I would say, 60 days.
Mm-hmm.
That's been wildly beneficial.
Yeah. And then you got featured on a podcast, or you're scheduled to be featured on a podcast from your content efforts as well too, right?
Yeah. I forgot about that. Now I'm going to get nervous again thinking about that audience. Yes. Somebody reached out to me.
Trial run, man. You're doing good. You're doing good.
Yeah. Yes. So a law firm, a very large employment law firm, a partner there reached out, and they're going to have me on. I think it's going to be in the next week or so. And they're partnering me with a very high-level HR executive on a panel to talk about what's going on right now in recruiting and onboarding. And that particular individual, all they work with is manufacturing and industrial firms. So it's going to put me in front of an audience, my audience, that I guess I otherwise wouldn't have access to. It's a massive audience. Yeah, that's very exciting. That's more exciting probably than any billable opportunity that we've had.
Yeah. Well, it's, making that kind of affiliate network is going to expand your reach that much more. One of the things that we really work on in the Relevant Recruiter program is helping our clients, really stand out and be the authority in, their specific niche in their marketplace, be the go-to, company in that space. And, when you're looking at how that conversation went with that guy in the podcast, share a little bit about kind of how you initially responded, and then what his response back was to you in terms of how he viewed you, just because of, you putting content out again for maybe 2 months at this time,
I don't even know if it had been that long yet.
Yeah.
At some point I had made a comment that I was like flattered and really appreciated the opportunity or something like that. And he kind of quipped back and said something like, yeah, don't be, like, you put out great stuff. We've been following you, or something like that. Which was, I guess it goes back to something that, and it helped too, because as you know, like, I'm not the only one here doing this stuff. We have our team, some of our team doing it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they went through the same struggle that I did early on. And it was remembering, I think, when you've been doing the same thing or something similar, you've been the same place for a long time, remembering that there's a lot of things that you do on a day-to-day basis that add value that you don't think about. You're just, our entire team here, they're an unconscious competent, and they forget that. I forget that.
Yep.
So it's once you kind of remember to put that hat on and remember that, and obviously what we do on a weekly basis, you and I together, is what I guess got us there. But that's been a huge piece.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, going into the whole team part of it, like you mentioned, obviously they had the same type of fear and resistance as you had, but like, how is the team, now that you've implemented this, like, has there been any change in their motivation? Because we did all this in the middle of COVID, when everybody was kind of like, I don't want to cold call anybody. What are we going to do? Type of a thing. Like, how has this shifted and transformed the team? Has it been positive, negative? I mean, what's that experience been like?
Yeah, it's been a positive. And like, so we say, like, the 11 agreements that we've had, that's not me. Like, that's obviously a combination. So this is not the Ben show. It took a little longer with, and respectfully, it'd probably take longer with me as well if I was not the one. Like, I had obviously direct access to you. You were the one that was like kicking me in the pants going, hey, you gotta, right? And so I'm translating it. But I don't know, I bet you within 30 days, there was a full buy-in. And now the content's awesome. I'm amazed at how quickly the shift happens once you get comfortable pressing go. And once you get comfortable realizing the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis provide value, and you just need to tell that story.
Mm-hmm.
Tell that story of how you helped a candidate with something that, most people aren't doing, or that story of how you corrected an error, or whatever the case may be. And just remembering to capture it and then to tell it, and maybe not tell it the next day. You don't want to make someone go like, I think that guy's talking about me on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's a true testament to your leadership though, Ben, because, you know, I've seen other people go through the program and not have as much success of being able to get their team to implement it like you have. And I think that just starts with they're seeing you go out, put yourself out there, get out of your comfort zone, and then they're, you know, maybe a step behind, but they're following. So I think that's incredible how you've been able to lead your team through that.
They're awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And tell, you know, we're talking a lot about business development, but are you seeing any ways that some of the things we've, you know, shown you to impact you on the sourcing side of things as well?
It goes back, I think, to the same thing. If you're making noise in your segment, people are more apt to respond to you as well. So that passive candidate who's probably getting who knows how many in-mails from other recruiters, when your face shows up or your name or your brand, and they've seen you being active in that segment, and they've seen you providing valuable content. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's kind of hard to measure that early on because you don't know how many people weren't responding to you for that reason versus how many now are. So if we could figure out a way to capture that metric, I'm sure it would be, you know, a real sexy number that we could share, but absolutely, because you hear it in those conversations over and over again. Oh yeah, I've seen you, or, oh yeah, I saw that post that you did on that. So it absolutely has a positive impact.
That's great. And one of the things that we're focused on, you know, another part of the relevant recruiter method is to amplify awareness. And that's essentially what Ben's talking about is their company went from, you know, minimal online brand awareness to, you know, really sticking out like a sore thumb and doing it as a team congruently. So there's a way that now, where his team was all programmed to cold call all the time, I'm sure they're still on the phone actively, but now they have another way to be able to reach out, have touch points with their clients and candidates, and again, build that awareness so that we can separate ourselves from the next company out there. So you know, that's kind of an idea for those of you that are watching of how you can implement this through an entire sales team and actually completely reinvigorate your company right now during the, you know, during a time like this. I know, Ben, when we first spoke, I know one of the biggest challenges was, you know, what was your approach going to be in the middle of the crisis, you know, when you guys were cold calling all the time. So obviously, you know, one of the things that is a challenge is this whole automation piece, right? A lot of people struggle with the automation piece. Did you have a little bit of like fear when you're like, oh, we're going to automate, you know, this and
oh my gosh, yes.
Automated it right in the middle of COVID, right?
Yeah. Well, I've always been afraid of it anyways. I'm afraid of sending out like even weekly and monthly newsletters because in my mind, we all get them from places. It's like, the last thing we want to do is spam our customers.
Right.
And so, yes, I absolutely struggle with that, but I guess there's a shift too. And it's a part of in your program, the videos that you have that kind of get you to that point of realizing automation can make you actually more effective from a human standpoint, as long as you're really controlling the messaging and the messaging is yours. Now,
Right.
If you are just taking generic messaging and, you know, dumping it in, it does become obvious. But if you really go through it and you have your voice behind everything, it's a game changer. I mean, all those agreements, none of those conversations started with a phone call. Not a single one of them. They all came from that process.
That's amazing. That's phenomenal to hear. So 11 agreements in the last, 90 days or so, including the pivot, you know, and you're seeing the results quick. Automation, you're making automation work in the way that aligns with you and your company, which I think is the most important thing. And that's one of the huge things that I think is critically important when you're setting up a system or you're thinking about evaluating, you know, a marketing system. Is one of the challenges that you have when you're using a third-party agency. If you're going to hire a third-party, you know, marketing agency to do some marketing for you, well, and generate leads, you know, what are you paying them for? You're paying them for leads right now, right? And so what happens oftentimes is that marketing agency knows that in 30 days, hey, I've got to show you how to do, you know, get new leads in your company in 30 days or you're going to fire me. And so what do? They go with the tackiest, shortest approach in order to get you leads, and it kind of rubs your brand. But when you've done what Ben's done here and be able to control the process, like everything that you're putting out, I'm sure aligns with you and your team, right?
Yeah, and it's remembering too that it's a marathon, not a sprint, like what you're describing. If you're going, especially in this environment, for that quick kill, it's going to be obvious, and it's not going to resonate. In fact, it probably gets you put on ignore. But when you have genuine messaging, again, if you think of how big of a book of business one individual can go after as one person, right? It's just it's a numbers game. You can only pursue so many targets if you're the one that's physically doing it, or if you have one person helping you. But when you have these tools, you're your target audience just explodes. I mean, the numbers, I remember early on when we were talking about the numbers that we're going to go into it, I'm like, that's just not possible. I don't understand how we're going to do that. And then as you get through it and you understand, you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. So just, it allows you to scale your effort in a way that is just incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Where are you getting most of these, conversations? I know LinkedIn is obviously a big place that we focus on, but are you getting these started from LinkedIn and email right now?
If I had to guess, this is embarrassing, I should probably be tracking this. If I had to guess, 60 or 70% of it is turning into a phone call before it gets out of LinkedIn into an email campaign. And then the other, 30 or 40% is getting to that step in the process where the conversation's moved from LinkedIn and we're doing some sort of email messaging. But usually It's before we get out of LinkedIn, more of it than not, for sure.
Right. And one of the things that we're focused on, in the program is a multi-channel approach. So what we're talking about here with Ben is that he's basically generating leads. He's got 2 fishing poles in the water right now, right? He's got a LinkedIn fishing pole. He's got an email fishing pole. And he really probably has 10 or 12 of these because he's got a whole team that's out there. But that's the whole idea, is like when you can start showing up on multiple platforms, your brand presence, amplifies that much more. Mm-hmm. Some of the things that we've got coming, Ben, that we're working on is the guide, landing pages, and things like that. We haven't even implemented everything that we can yet. We're scratching the surface.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I owe you some stuff, I'm aware. No, but it's a good problem to have, right?
This is why the journey is important, right? Because people think that we need to try to do it all at once. And we've got about, I don't know, maybe 33% of everything that we can implement. And we're already seeing the results that we're seeing. The next stuff we're going to implement is more of the high level, but it's just the importance of having that multi-channel approach, and I'm sure you're seeing how that's impacting your business, obviously, already. And I'm excited for what we're going to be able to do together, as we continue to move forward with this. What has been kind of the biggest, surprise, with our work, together?
I think it's probably 2. One, just the public piece of it. If you'd have asked me 90 days ago if I would have been someone who was like in the kind of out there in that space, like with a voice, I'd have been, I won't say it because we're being recorded, but yeah, I wouldn't have bought into that. But I also, we've, I would say, like officially gotten into retained business, whereas before that was like a real spotty, very occasional thing. And it's because we've been able to position ourselves as an authority, and we should have done it years ago. We've got the experience and the talent on our team, people that have been here for 8-10 years. Shame on us for not, previous to this, actually going down that lane. And that enters or opens all sorts of new doors from a business line standpoint.
Yeah. And I know going into that authority and kind of that lane that you ended up finally choosing came to, still like, where do I position? Like, what was some of the initial thinking that was like, no, I want to keep it a little bit more broad and vague, to like, now you're like, you know what? No, I'm all in on this market.
It's because we have a really broad client base. I mean, we in Houston have companies that are from industrial, law firms, transportation, building materials. Like we're really broad because our search business was born out of our staffing business. So in my mind, it's like, well, we're not abandoning that. And I don't want my messaging to, have the appearance that we're abandoning that. And we're obviously not. It just, that's what we're marketing towards right now, because that's another opportunity. So it's just a mental, I guess, barrier to get over, to understand, just because this is what we're doing at this moment, and what the marketing campaign that we're driving right now is towards one segment of our business. It does not mean that we're abandoning the other 5 segments. So that's difficult to overcome for me, for whatever reason.
All right. So those of you that are watching this live, and we're talking with Ben Bonnell here, talking about how he's generated 11 new contracts in the last 90 days using the Relevant Recruiter program. If you're enjoying this interview, go ahead and drop a like, drop a little fire in the comments down there. Give us a little love here. We're enjoying being here. Ben, what are you most excited about, as we continue to move forward working together?
The stuff that I should have already been getting done, some of those bigger picture items. It's good that we haven't gotten them done, in the sense that we're busy, but I'm excited to build that stuff out, like the guide, the landing page. It's in the works. I mean, it's not like we've not started it, but it is a struggle. It's a struggle sometimes on a daily basis to prioritize things, right? When you've got a laundry list of things to do that are revenue generating, right? It's hard to carve out the time for those other things. But going back to the book that you recommended to me, we will get that stuff done.
Right.
But I am excited about that because it gives you the ability to further show the depth of the individuals on your team, the experience, your knowledge. So it's unfortunate that we haven't got it done yet, but we absolutely will.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys have been crushing it. I mean, what do you think, can you speak on how the course kind of supports, and the way the course is kind of run to support you being a busy, entrepreneur, and how I've kind of laid that content out. Because I know one of the things that kind of comes back to me is like, hey, I'm busy. I don't know how I'm going to carve out the time. And you're as equally as busy as anybody. And you've been able to carve out the time. So you mind speaking on that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, the nice part about it is you can go at your own pace because once you get into the portal, right, you can go as fast or as slow as you want. But it's nice, two different things. One, when we're accomplishing a step, we're having to basically put information into a box so that you're giving us feedback and getting kind of into the weeds with us. But two, you don't really want to be the guy on the weekly call with your peers like, oh, what did you accomplish? Nothing. Oh, wow. So he or she didn't accomplish anything for the third week in a row. So there's that little bit of ego in you that's like, all right, like, come on, we gotta. So that's kind of what I was talking about some of those relationships you develop.
Yeah.
Being a part of that group is that's worth its weight in gold for sure from an accountability standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the beauty of working with a coach is the accountability alone. I know sometimes that's just what gets people going. And you just kind of brought up the group environment it's not something I talk about a ton, but like how valuable have the relationships been that you've developed, within the program?
Oh, it's awesome. It's just awesome to have a place of peers to go to ask a question, to see, hey, are you having a trouble with this? Or to celebrate a win. So someone comes in and is like, hey, we got XYZ done, or we accomplished this. Of course, everybody in the group's like, okay, so can you send us exactly what you did to get that done? And everybody's just willing to do it. So it's cool to have people, I guess it's cool. It's valuable to have people that are in the same boat, trying to accomplish the same thing that you're not competing against. So everybody's really willing to be transparent and kind of show you what's behind the scenes. So that's, very, very, very valuable.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about, the people I'm working with is everybody's kind of pulling everybody together. Everybody wants to see everyone successful. Everyone engages with each other. And, I think especially, in a time like now, I think we're all craving a little bit of human interaction. And I think that's one of the big things is being able to, be creative, interact with other people, but like to keep ourselves in that positive zone. You turn on the TV or you go onto, social media sometimes right now, man, it is easy to get depressed with everything going on in our world and country. And, and I think that having this type of a group and community of people that we can all stay positive, be pulling in the same direction has just been, I know it's powerful for me, even working along with you guys. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I told you today, I just saw a customer like in the flesh for the first time in months. And got in the restaurant. I was like, oh man, this is like,
yeah.
It was great. Like just human interaction. We're in Houston, so it's a hot spot right now. So not a lot of folks out and about. So absolutely. Yeah. That, I hope that's something that doesn't go away. Like as society returns to whatever normal looks like. I hope that's not something that we lose. And I don't think it is something that we'll lose because there's been some really strong relationships developed, but there's definitely been a lot of good stuff like that that's come out of this time period that we all should be very fortunate and thankful for.
Excellent, man. For those of you that are watching, we're about to wrap this up, but if you have any questions for Ben, why don't you drop them in the comments below there. Ben, what would you say, for anybody that's on the fence or thinking about, doing something like what we've done with, automating your lead generation online and building that brand presence? I mean, what would you say about somebody who's thinking about, working with me or even just exploring that?
Oh, call me. I'll convince you. It's easy. The return on the investment speaks for itself, right? I mean, it's especially for folks who are in a position like we are. We're a small team, and we're really good at what we do. But I hate to keep going back to that dang book, Essentialism, but like get rid of the things that you're not an expert at. If you're not a true expert at lead generation, or you're not a true expert at understanding how that plays into content and a brand awareness and all that, which most recruiters out there, if they answer, yes to that question that they are, they're probably full of it. You need someone on your team. You need someone who is an expert. And again, the ROI is almost immediate.
Right on, man. I love hearing that. And I've really enjoyed, our experience working together. Looking forward to seeing what we're just scratching the surface on what we can create. For anybody that's listening, like what's one piece of advice, that you would leave with them? I mean, you've had a pretty successful run with your staffing business, creating into staffing and search business into a 7-figure business. I mean, what's the advice you give somebody to help them get there?
So the people around you, I've been very, very fortunate to have at every stage of my life and career so far to have really good mentors and still have really good mentors and to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with really great people. And the same goes for the people that are here in our office, whether it's someone who's been here for 1.5 years or someone who's been here for 10 years, it's the people that are around you. Get the right people that are around you, people that are smarter than you, better at this, better at things that you're not good at, and embrace that. And, which again is why we're partnered together, right? Yep. I don't know anything about lead generation, and it's why we have the people we have in our office. They're all better at something than me, and that's what you need. You need people around you like that.
Yep, love that, man. Love that way of thinking. That's obviously carried you a far way. If anybody wanted to reach out to you, on LinkedIn or whatever, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you? How do they find you?
LinkedIn inbox is a little busy. Send me an email. We'll put my email below. And I'd be happy to chat with anybody.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Thank you so much for hanging out with me here today and sharing your story with us here. Like I said, man, I'm excited for our work to continue to work together and what we're going to be able to accomplish. Like I said, we're really just scratching the surface. We've implemented about half of where we can go now and looking forward to taking this thing to a whole nother level with you. Any last thoughts you want to leave here, man?
No, man, we're busy. I need to get back to work. Everybody here's working and I'm sitting in here talking to you.
Well, thank you, man, for taking out that time. If you guys are listening, you want to talk and discuss how the Relevant Recruiter program, can impact your business, just drop a little comment below. I'm in, and myself or one of my people on the sales team will reach out to you, or just feel free to direct message me right here in the group. Anyways, everybody have a happy Friday. Have a great rest of your week and weekend. Ben, thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Look forward to talking to you again next week.